This
Hey, no,
conference will now be recorded.
he wants to turn off our
Okay.
cameras, you said, to save
No,
it.
that's fine. You can leave your camera for right now. So anyway, welcome. My name is Novo Manna, and welcome to the Technology Review Council. We are here today to, shall we say, view, comment on, and perhaps provide some key feedback on Workuments. I had a pleasure of talking with Joe and Nick a while ago, and taken with what I'd seen. So I'm going to let you just introduce yourselves. And Joe, I love if you would start with your story about why Workuments exists today, which I thought was very inspiring, if you will. And then we will ask folks, if you just don't mind holding on a little bit, let them get through the presentation. We'll get some questions going when you get to the demonstration. And I know that this group is going to ask you some tough questions. So good, and away we go. It's yours, Joe.
Okay, thank you. Hi, I'm Joe Mancuso. I'm the CEO, and on here with me is Sabri. He's our resident genius, technology genius, and Nick, who's in charge of our marketing. All right, and we had a pleasure speaking with No and Dennis. Okay, and a few weeks back. I wanted to get with this. I know I have about an hour to work, so first, if you don't mind, I'm just going to tell you a little background on us, as No said. How we started, why we started. Basically, some years ago, we were looking around for HR. At that time, I had about 5 companies, okay? And we thought, well, there's a lot of HR out here. There's got to be something that's good, right? So we went and dug in on all the products. And we were kind of surprised, okay, that, you could find something that almost fit for one company, but then definitely wouldn't fit for the others, okay? And our history is developing software. We do work for the federal government. That's my largest company. Okay, we're with Medicare. And some years ago, at that time, okay, around the same time this is all happening, we won a major contract. Now, up until that time, if we want to work with Medicare or the government, we would look for something off the shelf. Okay, pretty much. If it fit, it's cheap, it's easy to do it that way. If not, then we would just build it. Okay. Well, we won a major contract. At that time, it was about 135 million. Okay, and we were taking care of Medicare beneficiaries around the country, and we needed technology to power that. We had picked out software to do this. Okay, and as we got closer to launch date, we were in June. We determined, we have to be up and running August 1st. This software's not going to cut it. It's not going to pass the security audit. It's spaghetti code in the back. If we want to add to it, develop, it's not going to work. Okay, it's a nightmare. What are we going to do? So we figured, okay, we have to build our software, but it's going to take a year. So we have like a little magic sauce, secret sauce. We have our own low-code platform. Okay, and with that, in 45 days, we built this whole application with one developer. We were the first ones at that time to do this in Amazon. Okay, passed a security audit, and since then we've added and it's grown. Okay, which gets to the HR story. We're looking around at HR. As I said, we couldn't find anything, okay? We have our own platform that we can build with. So we said, okay, let's build, right? And so that's how we started. And we didn't know what we didn't know. In other words, none of us were real HR experts. I did a lot of door knocking, okay? But one of the biggest problems that I saw out there is I saw HR professionals every 2-3 years researching a new product, trying to find something new, because what they had, they either outgrown, it didn't do what it was supposed to do. The same old story, where you have a client, maybe, or, you're in HR and you have a client who says, this is what I need. Then as they're using it over the course of a year, they realize they need something a little different. Maybe they need this kind of workflow. They need this kind of capabilities, whatever. And they go back and the company they're with can't do it, okay? And we also see new technology come up all the time, where it's a new HR product. Maybe it's got the buzzwords AI or whatever in there, okay? And then 2 years later, they're old because there's something else that's needed and they can't adapt, right? So we saw all this. So we architected our system in a different way, right? So we have this large enterprise HRIS system, but behind it, we have our secret sauce, our low-code platform. And with the low-code platform, it allows us really to adapt to any situation, to add features when needed very easily. and to grow. And when I say easily, we had someone come to us, I don't know, a month ago and say, hey, can you add QR codes for hiring, for the recruiting? Because I go out to job fairs and it'd be nice if I could use a QR code. Well, that's a great idea. Okay. So it took Sabri a half a day to add QR codes. Okay. And boom, now we have QR codes in the system where people could use for hiring and recruiting. Okay. So going back a second, we built this system for internal use, right? And my focus was really in the government space. Along the way, we've added some clients. We only have a handful, and it was totally by accident. They found us. One had 2,000 employees, another one's got 4,000 employees, okay? Because it's an enterprise system. Now we want to get out there in the commercial world, okay? And we really want to push forward and grow with this. So if it's okay, we're going to start. When I talked to Nov, okay, he said to really not focus on the applicant tracking side. So we do have applicant tracking, but we're going to skip past that. We're going to go to onboarding, okay, and start with that, okay, in the employee module. We have other features in here. We have other things we can do, competency. We have time and attendance. We have scheduling. We have performance. We have all kinds of things. We're going to try to hit some of these things in this next hour. And I apologize if I'm talking fast. I'm just trying to condense it all. Okay, so if it's okay, then we're going to have Sabri start, okay, showing the employee module. Is that okay, No?
Yeah, I think that's perfect. Like I say, I think that these folks are going to get the impression that you've got a lot of wealth of functionality, and if you haven't, maybe Sabri would build it as we do it. But nonetheless, the low-code perspective and the flexibility of the system is what I think we really want to see. So we'll test you on a couple of areas. But yeah, please start out on the employee side. That's great.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. So like Joe said, we have the recruitment module with the candidate tracking, with requisitions, applications, and everything. And I'm not going to go in there because you guys are not very interested in it. So I'm going to start directly in the employee side of it. So in the employee side, I want to start with this employee. This is a basic dashboard for an employee. This is a customizable dashboard that we built for one particular customer. And this can be configured or customized any way that you want. Now, in a regular system, you would have these panels where you say that this is the only things that you can do. You can add these 10 panels. You can add 7 of them. You can have 6 of them. Now, what we can do is instead of just adding what panels we already have, we can also go in here and create a completely new app or a completely new UI for you if you want something that's totally different. So this is like a standard dashboard. It shows you your years of service, tasks, and what you have to do and so on. But we can also take it a step further. And when the employee logs in, they can be taken to a complete customized dashboard that is configured specifically for your company. And we don't have to make any code changes internally for this. This is all built with a low-code platform. So this would come up as soon as you log in. And this can be different for each employee that you have. So for supervisor, they might have something that says my team. Or if you're a regular employee, it might show you that you have something that has to be done. You have to approve something. So depending on what you need, we can customize this completely. So this is the dashboard. I'm going back in here to the employees module. Any questions so far? All right.
So Sabri, this is Nov. Yeah. I'm going to have a ton of questions, but I'll try to temper it with what the rest of the group will ask. But I am curious. So one of the key things that seems to be a problem with most vendors, if you will, is many times we have very, very identifiable specific data that we as a company want to track that is not accommodated. How much of the data is definable by the user? And if so, is it all retrievable for reporting or display on a panel like this?
Yes. So, and I'm trying to move this so that I can go to different tabs. So I was going to show you this earlier, and I'm just going to briefly touch on this on where our low-code platform is. So this is really our low-code platform. And think of this as a complete package, in programming where you have like the backend, which is your database where you store data, and then you have your HTML pages, your styling, and then you have actual code like scripts, whatever code you want to use. So this is our low-code platform. Any data that you want to store about the employee, we have a certain amount of data that we store, and I'll show you, like addresses, phone numbers, and so on. But apart from that, any other data that you want to store for the employee, you can create a table on the fly here and just start storing them. It doesn't have to be in our system at all. And once you've stored this information here, it is all accessible within the system. So you can create your own reports. You can even create APIs from within the system here. And if you have an external system, once you collect all this data and you want to send some data to an external system, you can do all of that from within in here. Does it answer the question?
Nope.
I'm sorry. Here I am. I'm on mute on my phone here. No, it answered the question, but I have another general question, and that is,
okay.
So the reality of moving from one system to another has always been the problem of moving historical information that was held in storage through the other system, and taking that and translating it and moving it into your system and so on. So it sounds like with the ability to really, in a sense, define the historical data much as it's being kept in the other system, setting it up in your platform, defining it so that I can use it but not have to convert it over, in a sense, having to clean it up to make it useful in your structure. It sounds like that's an advantage of what you've done in this system, is you've given me a template that can put old and new stuff side by side and reconcile it easily enough on the screen.
Exactly. So, in any system, you're going to have, basic employee demographics, right? Like name, social security number, all that basic information in there. So that information we are storing in our regular main database, and you can just transfer it over to our regular database. But there might be other information that we don't have in our regular structure, so you want to store it separately. So that's where you would go and create another table in here and say, this is extra information about the employee, and I want to store it here. Now, you can combine all this custom information here with all the standard information that we have here. So you can produce a report that is a combination of everything together.
Perfect. I love it. That answers a major conversion question, so thank you.
Okay. All right. So going back, so this is, we have all the basic stuff that you would see on an employee's page. So you can store all the demographics, and most of this comes from a candidate page, when you hire a candidate. And I just want to show you briefly. So this is like a candidate page. I'm not going in deeply. When you want to convert an employee, we have what is called job profiles. I'm sure other systems have something similar. So you set up standard items for a job profile. You say that, this is going to be the title. This is going to be the supervisor. This is going to be the payroll codes, the department structure. These are certain documents that you have to give to this employee because they are being hired as a manager. So you set all this up as a job profile. And when an HR person converts a candidate to an employee, all they have to do is say that, I'm going to apply the manager job profile to this candidate. And the system is going to take care of everything else here. This page here can be, like 50 fields long if you want to specify each and everything when you convert a candidate, or it can be just like 2 lines here with just a start date and maybe a rate, and that's all you need. So once you apply the job profile, everything else the system handles. And when you go back to the employee side, everything is transferred over to the employee's profile here. So, anything in the demographics, anything that you collect on the application side, any EEOC data, the date of birth, their social security number, everything would be transferred here. Same way for addresses, phone numbers, emergency contacts. You can do this on the candidate application. They can enter it there and transfer it, or it can be part of your onboarding process where it's part of your packet and they just enter the emergency contacts there. You can also have availability. So this links into a scheduling. So you can collect information from the candidate and say, when are you available to work? So it links into a scheduling, and the scheduling model won't allow you to put them on some shift if they're not available then. And all that is transferred back in here as well. And the same availability is where you'll see any time off requests. We can create these custom workflows, and you say that it goes through different approvals, it goes to a manager, HR, and it's all tracked here. And again, it links directly into the scheduling system so that you don't schedule someone by mistake.
Sabri?
Yeah.
Just to mention, one of the things we like, the more complex the case, the better it is for us, because of what Sabri just mentioned. It doesn't matter how complex the workflow is, the logic, whatever, we can implement it, okay? So when I give you that example, he mentioned how our things go into scheduling. Maybe you have I bring up manufacturing because they have a lot of complexities, right? They have people working shifts. They might want a rewards program. We have all that built in, okay? So maybe they have employees and they have to worry about skills for certain jobs. We have that. So we can track all that, and we can assign, the system can actually predict what the needs are and can assign the correct people to those positions, okay, for those on the schedule. It can do all that. And then maybe you might want to offer rewards for people showing up on time, okay? And maybe they give them credits or money or whatever, okay? However they want to do it, we can do it, track it. And then maybe if they're out in the Midwest and they have snowstorms and, and they're like, oh, geez, we're going to make everybody come in late today. Well, our system has a broadcasting system, okay? We already have the ability to mass communicate with everyone, okay? And we can message everybody and say, hey, everybody come in 11 today. But that's going to make everybody late, right, on their schedule. So we handle that. We have the ability to mass update people's schedules, okay? There's a single click. So that means everybody will be on time. Things like this that we already have, okay, in the system. And more than that, in today's environment, trying to keep employees is so difficult, okay? Even contractors, you can manage contractors in the system, gig workers the same way you can employees, okay, with all the flexibility and everything like that. But keeping these people, instead of them jumping ship to another position, so you want to manage what you have, okay, and how do I manage their competencies, okay? And we love that, okay? So you can define your competencies. Sabri, if you want to go over there, just to get just a basic, when we talk about performance management and competencies and worrying about, okay, what are we going to do in the future if this position comes open? Who do we have that's qualified? And I've got this list of people, and what's their future like? You can manage all that in here. You can define the competencies for a position that exists, then see who's close to it, and what do they have to do to achieve that. And you can manage that whole process. We have training. You can manage the training process. Okay, we have alerts. We even have our own test engine in the system where you can build functional tests. Now, not psychometric tests, but actual functional tests, okay, that you can build to use to assess people, even on from hiring to later on, succession planning, to whatever you want to do, okay? It's all in the system. So but the competency management I find interesting, because person A that might leave, now he sees, I can stay with the company and I can get this next position. What do I have to do to get there? And he's there. There are a lot, okay. I think somebody just asked a question. It came up and then it went away, so I don't know what it was.
Yeah, I'll check that out. I'll read that out to you in a moment, but go ahead and finish what you were doing.
Yeah. So the idea for me is the competency management, we really like a lot because we think you can retain a lot of people, okay? When we have the triggers and alerts, but Sabri, keep going. Go ahead.
Okay. So just going back to the basics, I'm not going into every tab unless, if you ask me, I can go into each one of them. I'm just showing you what is like the most important. So one of these is called the delegation functionality that we have built in here. So if you're a supervisor and if you're going on leave and you want to delegate your responsibilities to someone, You can do it from in here. It goes through an approval process. You select who is going to be the supervisor in your stead, and the system will automatically reroute everything to that person. So any approvals that have to be done, performance appraisals, shift change approvals, whatever it is, it will all go to that person until you come back and you specify when you're coming back. So you can do all of that from in here. Now, any questions in here in the basics? Anything else that you want to look at?
Just, I always seem to have a couple of questions here, but let me be respectful to Michelle, who asked the question. Says this system looks very interesting. There are a lot of good systems out there already. Is there a specific current group of applications, or I would say even functionality, that you're hoping to displace? In other words, maybe the Gartner top quartile or something for additional context. In other words, where do you think your strengths are? I mean, certainly the low-code flexible platform opens that up, but I think what Michelle is saying is, are you trying to hit a couple of niches that are a little bit, shall we say, left uncovered by other vendors?
I think Michelle, number one, in the competency area, like I mentioned, okay, but the idea of process and the idea of being able to manage and adapt to a business's process so they really can't outgrow us. That's the differentiator. If someone comes in and they've got a better whistle over here for one area, okay, and then a year later the company says, you know what, we've outgrown that whistle, we need this, and they can't adapt. So now they're on the market again, looking out there in the market, looking for a new product. With us, they can come to us and they can say, hey, can you add QR codes? And yes, we can add QR codes, okay, and we do it. Can you manage assets? Yes. It took Sabri a day to build an asset management tool, okay, internally. So it's not any one thing, okay, because every business is unique, right? And so what we try to do is we try to sit back and work with the company. The idea is to manage what they need, okay, and give them what they want. Does that make sense?
I'll answer for Michelle. I think the answer is yes. It does make sense.
Yeah,
Elisa,
sorry.
that's another question. Oh, go ahead.
I'll probably have some questions at the end too. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. No, like I say, I warned Joe that this group would probably pepper you with questions. Very, very quickly, from the standpoint, Sabri, from the standpoint of, if you will, file formats, can I embed a video? Can I embed a PDF? Can I call it back up in, let's say, a panel looking at an I-9 process or something like that?
Yes. So let me just quickly take you into the employment package, Steve. So this is really like the onboarding packet and anything that you want to send to an employee, not just when you hire them, but throughout their life in the company itself. This is a sample of just the onboarding packet itself, and they first, get in as an employee. So this is our own I-9 form. It works exactly like a regular I-9 form. The employee sees only certain parts of it, and then the manager will come in and see the second section, and then there'll be a re-verification section on the bottom that only the manager or the HR person would see. We can send, the employee's license and certifications as part of this and say that, enter all your certifications in here. We can send them documents that they have to review in here, and these can be PDF documents or just instructions. It's entirely up to you. We can even create a custom form in here. So because we have this low-code platform, you don't have to use a regular PDF. You can also create your own custom form with your own questions and with your own text. Now, if you have a PDF form, we can also create this PDF form in such a way that you can add text in there. This is like a PDF page, and you can show like where they have to sign or what they have to enter. Let's see what else.
You said about embedded videos, Sabri.
I'll see if I can find an embedded video somewhere in here.
And as you're doing that, Sabri, Elise had asked a question about when you were doing the workflow situation. Can you delegate the tasks to different people? In other words, split it out. Sometimes you want to go up the ladder peer to another peer. I suspect you're also supporting the proxy situation where if I'm on vacation, the work doesn't stack up till I get back, I can assign to somebody else.
Right. So the delegation that we have right now is going to one person, but it would be very easy to add it so that you specify a task for each delegation. So, you could say that for timesheet approvals, you go to one person. If you want to do something else, like, for a PTO approval, maybe it goes to a different person. So it is just a rerouting based on the task that they want to do.
Yes. So yes. And we have there's an example of one embedded video right there. So yes, now we could definitely do embedded videos in the system.
And you made a point, I think, Joe, at some point in time in here where you were talking about the fact that, I've got APIs and I can bring data from another system. So my question then becomes, does your platform potentially represent an aggregation platform where I could have point solutions, let's say for performance, because I like this vendor better than somebody else, a learning system over here. In other words, you become the aggregation and API point for this stuff coming in with really top-notch functionality that meets my needs, but it's not in one system. It is now in one system by virtue of being attached to your platform. Is that something that it's on your horizon, or anybody doing that?
Yeah, we can do that. We can sit on top, in other words, is what you're saying, and pull all the data in. Right, Sapri, go ahead.
Yeah. So this dashboard that you see here, this information is taken from our, the custom coding platform, right? So if the other system has an API and it allows us to access the data, then we can pull the data into our system and display it here. I have a customer right now where I collect data for them from like 2 different places, and they don't even know it's happening in the background. I get the data, I store it in our system, in our own tables, and then they get reports and a whole lot of things based on the data that I'm collecting from external systems. And some of these systems, they don't even have to have APIs. One system that I'm integrating with, I just get this data as Excel sheets, and then I parse the Excel data and get the data out of that and put it into our own table that I can then query and do whatever I need to do with.
Yeah. So, and now to carry it a little further, when the original low-code platform was architected, we built it so that we could work with any data source. Okay, so whether it be Oracle or it doesn't really matter. We can tap in, pull the data, and work with it and build applications on it. So we just take advantage of that here.
Right.
And it's also a 2-way communication. So, sorry, if you wanted some other system to get data from our system, you can build APIs in our system in our low-code platform and expose it. You don't even have to come to us. You can just expose an API and say, this is the information. And we do that as well. We have a company that does WOTC, and they come into our system, get information about the employee, and then perform the WOTC. So, it's 2 ways. We can do it any way you want.
Gotcha. So looking at the crowd, and we've got about 27 minutes left to our hour, and I don't know where you are, Sabri, in the demonstration, but I'm going to ask a kind of a loaded question, because this is a really nice group of, shall we say, insightful people. What is the toughest problem that you have encountered in your company trying to put an implementation together? In other words, data that you got to build, got to make it happen. The vendor didn't supply it. Can you give me an example of that? And let's kind of test Sabri and Joe and Nick a little bit on how would we approach that? What would we have to do? I am thinking to myself that system administrators are like small gods on this platform, because I can make anything happen, is what I'm hearing. So,
I don't know if this answers the question that you were thinking, but hopefully. We had a client come to me at a hospital chain, and they wanted to use our system. The vendor they were with was holding them hostage, okay, and gave them an ultimatum. If they didn't sign a contract by January 2nd, they were gonna that's it. No more data. They couldn't access their data anymore. We were in December, okay? So they were panicking. They didn't know what to do. They didn't want to keep with this vendor, okay? And obviously, I mean, sounds like thugs, really, when you think about it, okay? So here we are, and we had about 2 weeks, I guess it was about that time, to get their data, implement a system for them, and have them up and running, okay? And this is through the holidays, 24/7. So we accessed their data. Okay, we were able to grab a lot of their data, pull it into the system, uploaded it. I mean, we were running around the clock, like 7 days a week to get them up and running. So they didn't miss a beat. Okay, January 2nd, they were full in our system, ready to roll. Okay, and they used a different applicant tracking system at the time they were under contract with. So we just integrated with that applicant tracking system. Okay, they used us for everything else. Does that answer your question, Nav, or was it?
Well, it pretty much answers it, but I was looking more for the crowd to bring maybe something very, very real that they had encountered that maybe they haven't even solved it. But I'll just leave it hanging out there for anybody who wants to either pose that or toss it in chat. I do have a question of you, and that is, do you have a payroll module?
No, we don't do payroll, but we'll work with payroll. Okay, so we'll bring a payroll partner, and just like we do background checks. I mean, we're the front for the background, but we have a background check company, okay, that we work with that takes care of backgrounds. Okay, and we'll integrate with any. We don't discriminate, you know, in the background check. We just have to do the integration. The same thing with payroll. And does anybody have a use case that they would like to bring up that they ran into a problem?
I'll let I see some names out there. I won't pick on anybody. Let's say that there's probably there's several hundreds of years of experience sitting out here that probably say, oh yeah, I have one for you. Anybody want to pose it? Or if not, we'll come back to that question later. Again, I don't want to shortcut any demonstration, but I'm thinking in the broader sense about some of the things. So security and privacy, two very key aspects these days in the HR systems. Do you want to speak a little bit to how you handle that? I keep coming back to this idea that you've given me a template. You've given me the paints and the brushes and the canvas. I get to paint the picture as a system administrator. It sounds like I've got an elevated position in this implementation that is probably greater than normal, but a great deal of flexibility. So my question is, how do you handle things like the security, the PII, the viewing of certain pieces of data that are already maybe role-based in other systems, things of that nature? I'm trying to do a comparison of your platform vis-a-vis the more standard stuff that we see from vendors.
Yep. Okay,
so we have two kinds of security set up in the system. One is a more broad-based security, which we call security profiles. So every time someone is added to the system, an employee, they all get a security profile. And this is entirely dependent on you. You create it on your own. But, you know, for example, an administrator has access to everything. So everything is checked. But you can go in here and you can say, for example, you know, you look at the emergency contacts, right? You say that you can only view it for employees, or you can only view for employees that are reporting to me, or you can only view for your own profile, the emergency contact. And some people will be able to edit it. So this is a more high level security that everyone gets, and it controls what they can see and cannot see about employees, about different modules, and, you know, everything else. Apart from that, we have what is called an access control list. And this is more of a fine-grained security. So in here, it's not like, you know, this whole group of people can do this, or the whole group of people cannot do it. But I can set it up and say that, you know, for example, I'll say that this Albert Einstein cannot view the social security number for anyone in this particular location. So you can set up something very specific like that. It can be even more specific. You can say that, you know, you cannot see, you know, social security for anyone in Arlington, but I'll have a rule on top of this and say Albert can see the social security for Sudbury, even though he is in Arlington. So you can create extremely fine-grained security rules here.
Yep.
Great. And you know, I'm going to allude to a very quick question that Michelle has asked here, which I think is it's a nice general question. I'd like to take it a little deeper, but she's asked, she can appreciate that changes can be deployed quickly. Are the same changes deployed to all customers, or is it a case by case? And I believe what she's saying is, in a cloud situation, I probably have my own private instance of this platform, as opposed to what I make as a change. Or maybe when she means customers, does that mean everybody in my company? I'm kind of trying to delineate between those two.
So we have a multi-tenant system. and every customer is going to get what we call an org or an organization. And whatever changes that we make is very specific to that organization. So, if you have an account for your company, then whatever we implement for you would be just for you. So if Michelle's company is different, we set her up differently. Her controls, what she has, will be completely different. But so for example, if you build an app, right? You come to me and you say, I want to build this app to manage assets in my company. So I build this app for you. That app is only available to you and people inside your company. But then Michelle comes in and says, I really love that app. I would like to have that too. Then because we have this low-code platform, I don't really have to build that entire app from the ground up. I can actually take that code, like package it and just deploy it to her, and she would also have something similar. And I can make changes to it. So, your app might be like a completely different, and hers would be like 90% the same, but like 10% different, customized just for her.
Yeah. And occasionally, Michelle, there's times when we think, wow, this is a really good idea, like this QR code thing. So we'll let everybody have it. Okay, we'll put it in so everybody has it. Okay. But it has to be something where they think that it's really good for everybody.
Okay.
So this is Michelle. So thank you for answering that. Just to add to that, so all of your clients essentially are getting a custom HR system specific to their needs. And so when you go ahead and in the use case that you just gave, where you said, okay, we were asked for a QR code by company A, we think all of our clients will like that, so we'll add it to all of our clients. What happens to some of the other stuff that they've customized? Do they have to do a bunch of regression testing when you make those unilateral changes?
They won't have
and
to.
I'm thinking about it from a sustainability perspective, because when I'm talking to companies that I work with, sustainability and total cost of ownership is incredibly important. And so that's where my questions are driving at, is how hard is this to maintain afterwards? Or is it like 20 years ago when you brought in an application and you could customize it to your heart's content, but then it became very hard to sustain afterwards?
Well, we have, okay, so that's a great question, because I was actually at lunch one time. I don't know if I told this to Nova or not, but I was at lunch one time and I was sitting next to somebody, and she was president of a system integration company, and she worked with Oracle and SAP, okay? And she brought up the very thing you're bringing up, because I asked her, I said, hey, what's the number one issue you have? And she said, it's the customer. And I said, the customer? And she said, yeah, they all want it their way, okay? And so if they would just take it out of the box, it wouldn't be an issue. But they want us to do all this work. So we do all this expensive work. It takes us a long time, okay, to get it to work their way. And then SAP, Oracle, whatever, they come out with an update, and it breaks everything. And so they have to roll everything back, okay? And she said, and it's a nightmare, and they're really upset. So where we're different, okay, and that's where we're going back to this whole idea. We have a base core system, okay, which everybody gets, right? And then when we're talking about customizations, it's configurations more than even customizations. It's how do we build these workflows? How do we do this? So when we make a change, like we want to add QR codes to everybody, everybody's getting that. That's in the background, okay? We're not going to break the system. We're going to test the system, okay? But the things that you're talking about that are special, like Sabri talked about the asset management tool, that's sitting on top at a different layer, okay? And it's not effective, okay? So Sabri, can you explain that a little better than me? Because I'm not as geeky as you. Go ahead.
No, I think you explained it really well. So, most of the things that I'm showing you here right now, this is our base system. This is our fundamental HR system, and this is all standard. Everyone gets the same thing. It's based on your licensing, of course. Some people don't want recruitment, they won't have recruitment, they won't have learning. But other than that, this is all very standard. Now, anything that we build for you, like this dashboard, we build it for you. Now, this is going to be completely customized just for you. And no matter what other changes we make to the system, it's not going to affect whatever you built here.
Does that make sense, Michelle? It's just we're just architected in a different way, okay? We have different layers. so to speak.
Yeah, I think that answered my question. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I guess I have I mean, in my opinion, it's a good example. So those of you who have used like Wix or some kind of like website building tool, right? So imagine you build your website, right, that never existed before. You build it from all these blocks, and then let's say Wix or Webflow or any of these other platforms, they update their core thing. So the main question is, does your website and everybody else's website in the world break, or do they have to do this regression testing? The answer is no, right? Because they architected the system in a way like kind of we did, so that it wouldn't break, because all that stuff, all that code is sitting at a different layer. And with HR, it's just simply not present today in the market.
So we have, yeah, yes. So that's why we were thinking we did this ahead of time, because we knew, honestly, Michelle, we didn't know what we were going to need in a year, 2 years, 3 years. Okay, we weren't nearly as capable as you guys, or as knowledgeable. Okay, so we had to be, okay, what if we need this? What if we need that? Yeah. Okay, does that answer, I guess?
Yep, that answers my question. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So this is Nov again, one more time. From the perspective of compliance, knowing that legislation seems to be touching everything, and thank God you don't have payroll as part of that situation, but it's bad enough on the HR side of the house. What do you consider to be your obligations as a vendor for compliance to your customers versus what they need to manage, if you will?
What we try not to do is we try not to do what you do. Okay, we're not giving them HR advice. We might tell them what we see. We might give them some ideas. Actually, I'm really good on the business side. Like I can see some things and I give some ideas. Hey, we could do this for you. It might help you. We might be able to automate this for you. That type of thing, right? But from an HR, if you're asking from an HR compliance regulation, what the rules are, what this is, what that is, we leave it to the HR professionals to dictate to us, to tell us, do this, do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and again, it's one man's opinion. This thing, compliance tends to be something that really drives HR crazy. They would rather place that in the hands of. So there's some kind of general standardized stuff that's federal level. There's certainly state regulations that you have to, and they look to the vendors to really keep them in sync with that. And I think you've kind of reversed that process. So the obvious question is, does your user community communicate well enough to share what they've built that would address maybe some of the compliance situations?
Well, we build it. So in other words, they come to us.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. I mean, you build it, but I mean, somebody's gonna say, hey, I need a state controller report for California. Right. And what does that look like? And somebody's done that for it. Is there a kind of, I call it a library of things that you have built that could be accessible? And I gather if you don't have to build it, I still get charged for it in some fashion. That would be logical.
Right.
But do you have such a thing like a library of things that you're building, or how can I find out what's out there available? It's kind of like, again, I'm like a painter. You gave me the paint, the brush, and the canvas, but I don't know what I'm going to paint yet. Can you give me a couple of ideas? Show me some pictures.
So we have some of these, like what you were talking about. Some of these we already have. As far as compliance is concerned, we have this compliance dashboard, and we tell you that these are things that you need. For example, like the I-9s. If someone has not finished their I-9 with a certain period of time, or it hasn't been signed, you have to be on top of it. Some employees, they have to have tax IDs, So this is our compliance dashboard, where this is our library, really, like what you were asking about, and what we have. So if you come and tell us that, there is a different kind of report or something that you want. So for example, this is a EEOC compliance, that someone wanted. So we can build this for you. And in a particular format that, that you want, we can do all that. And if we think that it is something that is going to affect all customers, like like you said, if it's a federally mandated compliance item that everyone would be using, then instead of just building it for that customer, we would just add it inside the compliance dashboard, or wherever it makes sense.
The flip side of that question, then, if you don't mind my asking this, because like I say, I'm fascinated by by this. It is a very different approach than what I'm used to, and I've been around a long time. But so from the perspective of analytics, you've got probably a ton of clients out there that are doing all kinds of great stuff with some great data, but there may be some sense of dashboards and metrics that are meaningful. And I see entire consulting firms struggling with that, or even vendors coming up with metrics that matter and whatever the case may be. So my question to you is, and I guess that we're kind of seeing an EEOC one, looks like a little bit of a dashboard as well on certifications expiring. So a little bit of things, reminders, but I think there's some key metric type of things that people are experimenting with, the wealth of data you're offering that allows me to really start running the business rather than reacting to it. Does that make sense? Joe, I think as the person who looked at this, and I've got 5 different companies that I need to manage, what am I looking for? You may have some ideas, and certainly, sorry.
Yeah, and you want to know ahead of time. You want to know when this is happening, that's happening. Like, I'll go to a simplistic example, overtime reports, or somebody who could be going into overtime, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those are simple examples, but they're use cases every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't want people going into overtime. Well, if I schedule this person, we'll put them into overtime, and when will they be in overtime? Who's coming in late? Who's coming in early?
Mm-hmm.
Who's punching in early and going across the street? Maybe we can stop them from doing that,
Right.
I mean,
I just jumped to the time module because Joe was talking about the overtime. This is a time and attendance module. So this is like one of those reports that you were talking about. This is a cost distribution report that one of our customers uses. And based on who's working where for how many hours, they like to look at the cost distribution. And they match this every payroll period with the actual payroll that goes out from ADP to see, whatever I see here, does it match whatever is coming out from there? And the same way, it looks at the overtime report. I don't have anyone in overtime right now, but it will look at a certain period of time, and it will say that if someone is working overtime, it'll have a display of people that are actually in overtime. And apart from that, I can also, so I'm just briefly showing you, a timesheet itself. So was there any other question on the employee side that you wanted to see? If not, I can just show you the time.
I want to know something else, Sabri. So, and with that note too, another example we had that with the hospital, right? They're worried about compliance with JCO, okay, and passing audits, and they didn't want to get dinged, right? And so in the system, we track people's licenses, certifications, we track dates, and it would start sending alerts out, like let's say 60 days ahead to the person, and to say, hey, you have to update this. Then maybe at 45 days went to the supervisor, maybe at 30 days went to HR, okay? And they could get a report. Corporate, the CFO might want to report, okay, here's a list of people that might fall out, okay, of compliance. And then on the day that it was late, the day that it was due, if it wasn't in, we automatically terminated them. The system automatically shut them down. They couldn't get in anymore, okay? So they could not be out of compliance. And that's the way they wanted it.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I don't think.
We have about 7 minutes left. I just want to make sure that we give you enough time. And again, the TRC audience, any questions you may have, let's go ahead and pop them in the chat, and I'll make sure that we get them at least to Joe and Sabri and get answered on that. So
yeah, I love it.
No, this
yes,
is
ma'am.
Bob. Hi. I can't type in the chat. I'm not sure why.
Oh, that's okay.
I have a question for Joe and folks. Low code and no code platforms are sort of coming into their own.
Right.
What I see as the challenge here is the human dimension. Working with the company to help them get this up, running, and functional. Do you have any of those services with this platform?
Yes, we do the implementation. So what would happen is someone like you, for example, you have a client, okay, and your client, so you would, let's say you project managed it, and you said, okay, this is how we want this piece to work, this module. I want this to function this way, okay? And then for us, using our platform, we would make it work that way. Pretty easy, okay? And then, as things evolve, 6 months later, you do a reassessment and you come back and you say, you know what, now we've run into this issue internally. Can you make a change here? And we want to add this, okay, instead. Yep, we go in and we can adjust, okay? There may be some simplistic things that you do yourself or one of the people do internally, but anything complex, we take care of, especially with logic and things like that. Does that answer your question?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I have to say to Bobby, she is reading my mind. We've been longtime friends, and I admire her thinking. So, Joe, I'm going to propose something, and the TRC is sitting here and listening. What is he going to say next? I would like you to come back with a client, not to demonstrate your system, but I would like them to present how they approached their requirements, and if you will, fitting that into your implementation process to then give forth a system, if you will. I think that would be an extremely valuable and, if you will, very telling situation. Not telling that your system works or doesn't work, but more, this is a rethinking of how we do things. I mean, very different rethinking. It's suggesting that the company really understands what it needs. If they're using an old system that isn't meeting their needs, they know what's wrong, but they may not know what's right, if you will, if that makes sense. So I'd love to invite you guys back to do that. Give us, I'll leave it to your discretion when that could be and who that would be, but we'd love to have you come back and give us a presentation that then really kind of speaks to the flexibility of the platform, the low code situation, the quick ability to build something, and the impact of what Bobby was saying is, how do I go prepare for this, and how do I really manage it to get what I really need at the end of the day? Because that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to provide something that's going to allow me to run the business correctly.
Yes. And so you'd like to actually bring a human back?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
A human that could tell us, so, here's what we had to do in preparation. Here's why we selected it, but even more so, what was the implementation like? What did we forget? I'm going to be doing a webinar pretty soon on data governance, and people don't understand exactly the value of understanding your data and actually having it have strong integrity and standardization. And so those are the kind of thinking that says, do I really know what I need to run the business, and do I have it all right? And so I would like to invite you guys back to do that. It's unprecedented for those who have been around a while. This is a new one for us folks, but I think it would be of great interest to us all to hear how you approach this process. It's very different in my mind than the traditional implementation methodology.
I'll do it. Okay. We'll reach out and then we'll circle back to you about setting up the time.
We'd love to. And I would invite everyone in this audience to I'll remind you, but in a sense, this would be great to kind of extend what we've seen to date already today. So any last questions, any last observations, anything you wish to tell Joe and the team? Great job. I personally think it's going to be an interesting game changer, if you will. You've got a little ways to go on some of the stuff, but I think you're on a path that's going to be different, very different. So very nice.
I really appreciate it. I appreciate the time and getting to meet everybody, and I'm excited about this. Yeah. And I'll circle back though for sure, and we'll set up a time.
Yep. And you're getting a couple of comments if you're not seeing them. Michelle says, great presentation. Looking forward to seeing and learning more. And Dennis is well informing. And thank you. And thank you for me. This was very entertaining ever since we met. And thank you, Dennis, for the introduction. I'm very intrigued with where this is going. And so I think we want to give you some opportunities to show off, if you will.
Yep, that sounds great. Thank you very much, Noah.
My pleasure. And everyone in the TRC, thank you very much, as always, for joining. Prepare yourself, tighten your seatbelts. We got 5 more of these in a row. Boom, boom, boom. And I'm working on more. So it's going to be a fun-filled summer. All right, everyone. Stay well. Talk to you all soon. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.